Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 5th of August. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. I'm Mark Broom, and let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The death toll from the Ebola outbreak in West Africa rises to 887 as the spread of the disease picks up speed. 2 Americans who contracted the virus are said to be recovering after taking an experimental serum. Korea's defense minister has apologized following the death of a bullied young army conscript. Han Min-gu described the death of the 23-year-old private as an inhumane crime that should not happen in a civilized society. Plus, Israel has agreed to an Egyptian proposal for a 72-hour ceasefire in the Gaza conflict to start at 2 p.m. Korea time on Tuesday. Egypt's plan also calls for Israeli and Palestinian factions to attend talks in Cairo to negotiate a longer-term agreement. But we start with the latest on the world's worst outbreak of the Ebola virus in Africa. The number of people who have died following the outbreak has risen to almost 900, while more than 1,600 people in 4 West African countries now have been affected. The World Health Organization issued the new total on Monday, which takes into account the deaths up until last Friday. Meanwhile, there are hopes that an experimental serum to treat the disease, the virus, is working. The serum was given to 2 American aid workers, Dr. Kent Brantley and Nancy Wright-Ball, who contracted the virus in West Africa. Now, Brantley is being treated at Emory University Hospital in the US. You can see him getting out the ambulance. Their infectious disease specialist says he's now strong enough to stand up and walk. And Wright-Ball was also reportedly regained her appetite and is in a stable condition now. Now, this drug was developed by a biotech firm based in San Diego and was never before tried in humans in actual fact, but had shown promising results when tested on monkeys. Staying with the Ebola story, and the Korean government has advised Korean nationals in West Africa to get out of the region immediately over fears of the Ebola virus. Koreans are also being asked not to travel to these countries where cases have been reported. Korean companies are also locking down operations in West Africa and pulling out staff as they keep very close tabs on the latest developments. Our Ji-yeon reports.
The deadly Ebola virus is prompting Korean companies currently doing business in the African continent to take precautionary measures. Korea's largest automaker, Hyundai Motor Company, stopped its Dubai headquarters from sending their employees to the affected regions. The world's largest smartphone maker, Samsung Electronics, also follows suit. The Korean Foreign Ministry has raised travel warnings to Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone, while Samsung has banned business trips to nearby countries including the Ivory Coast, Senegal, Mali and Guinea Bissau. While the world's largest display manufacturer, LG Electronics, posted warnings on its internal board to refrain from sending employees to the western part of Africa, most affected by the Ebola virus. Korea-based Isu Engineering and Construction was paving roads in Sierra Leone, but halted work and pulled out most of its employees back in June. The Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency has gone so far as to advise its employees working in Africa to refrain from making bodily contact with others and to stop using public towels in hotels and restaurants. Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now, more international news, because a massive search operation goes on in China in the wake of one of the deadliest earthquakes to hit that region in recent years. The 6.1 magnitude quake struck the southern Yunnan province around about 40 hours ago now, but rescuers have been struggling to get to the region because of torrential rains and landslides, and the death toll keeps ticking up. Our Paulie reports.
A massive rescue operation continues this Monday to find survivors of a strong quake that struck the densely populated city of Xiaotong in China a day earlier, toppling thousands of buildings and killing over 400 people. So far, the number of injured stands over 1,800, but is expected to rise. The 6.1 magnitude earthquake had the deepest impact on Ludian, a county of some 449,000 people located in China's southwestern Xiaotong prefecture. China's state-run Xinhua news agency says an estimated 80,000 homes have been destroyed and 124,000 more seriously damaged. It's still unknown how many people could still be trapped under the debris, as rescue teams have yet to reach some remote villages. A major relief operation is underway, with over 18,000 rescuers dispatched to the worst-hit areas, carrying tents, food, and excavating tools. The Red Cross Society of China has sent quilts and tents, while Red Cross branches in Hong Kong and Macau are also sending relief supplies. Chinese authorities have scaled up their disaster response to the highest national level in the aftermath of the worst earthquake to hit the region in 14 years. Chinese President Xi Jinping has ordered authorities to make all-out efforts to save lives, while Premier Li Keqiang arrived at the disaster site on Monday afternoon to oversee relief efforts. The quake struck in a largely agricultural area that is prone to seismic activity. In 1970, a magnitude 7.7 quake in Yunnan killed at least 15,000 people. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Now, Korea has just begun recovering from Typhoon Nakari, but it seems the peninsula only has a few days until yet another typhoon makes landfall here. Typhoon Ha Long, currently near the Philippines, is currently moving in a northwesterly direction and could hit Korea's southern island of Jeju by this weekend. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Packing strong winds of over 50 meters per second, Super Typhoon Ha Long is making its way toward the Korean peninsula and is expected to be the strongest typhoon so far this year. The storm, named after a tourist destination in Vietnam, began forming in late July and is currently positioned near the Philippines. The storm is expected to reach Japan's Okinawa by this Friday, and Korea's southern island of Jeju is likely to fall in its path by this weekend.
The typhoon can change its path depending on the contraction or expansion of high pressure in the North Pacific Ocean. By looking at the barometer, the storm will likely affect the peninsula this weekend.
Although it has been moving slowly, the typhoon has intensified along the way. If and when it hits Korea, the damage is expected to be significant. Winds of over 40 meters per second can turn over cars. The approach of Ha Long comes after Typhoon Nakri struck the south of Korea this past weekend, killing at least 10 people and damaging several buildings. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Now, to the army bullying scandal that has shaken the nation to its core. The government will expand an investigation into the killing of a 23-year-old army conscript who died after being struck in the chest by his alleged tormentors, who had already put him through months of hell. The incident, which occurred back in April, sparked public outrage due to the sheer level of cruelty and brutality that was reported. It prompted Defense Minister Han Min-gu to apologize to the nation on Monday, vowing a thorough probe to sternly punish those responsible. This, however, is just the latest in a series of cases that highlights the abusive culture and poor management within the Korean military. An army sergeant who had been bullied by his comrades went on a shooting rampage back in June, killing several of his comrades there, and all South Korean men are mandated to serve in the military for about 2 years, as the country is still technically at war with North Korea. Now, Japan and China are said to be trying to arrange a meeting of their leaders during the upcoming APEC forum in Beijing. This to mend relations, hopefully, strained over historical and territorial disputes. Now, Japan's Nikkei Business Daily reported on Monday that former Japanese Prime Minister Yasuo Fukuda held a secret meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping late last month and expressed the current Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's call for talks on the sidelines of the November forum. Voicing concerns over the lack of dialogue between the two nations, the paper said that President Xi expressed a will to take positive steps to resolve this deep diplomatic deadlock. Now, China-Japan relations have dipped to their lowest ebb in recent years due to disputes over remote islands in the East China Sea and Prime Minister Abe's visit to a controversial war shrine, which China sees as a symbol of Japan's past militarism. Time now for a look through some of the other international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news centre. Very good morning to you, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
Now, a new 3-day ceasefire has been announced and is going to be in place when morning dawns on the heavily battered Gaza Strip. The question really remains now is whether this one will actually stick.
Right, that suspicion also present in leaders of Israel and Hamas, even as they agreed just hours ago to the ceasefire proposal, weeks in the making and brokered in Egypt. The humanitarian ceasefire would be effective in less than 4 hours starting at 8 a.m. local time and good for 72 hours, during which Cairo will try to hammer out a more long-term truce. Now, this latest warring between Israel and Palestinian factions is turning out to be the deadliest in recent years, the death toll eclipsing those from fighting back in 2012 and 2009. Currently, nearly 1,900 Palestinians have been reported killed in the dense Gaza Strip, while 64 soldiers, 2 civilians, and a Thai laborer were killed on the Israeli side. The Israeli assault appeared to be winding down in the past 24 hours as a unilateral 7-hour humanitarian pause was in place. Hamas rocket fire had also tapered off, and IDF says nearly all of the so-called terror tunnels have been destroyed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had warned, though, Operation Protective Edge would resume and end only when quiet and security are restored for Israelis. Now, that 7-hour window had allowed residents in most parts of Gaza to step outside to check on their homes, restock on supplies, and withdraw cash. A ferry carrying some 250 people has capsized in waters 30 kilometers southwest of Bangladesh's capital of Dhaka. Emergency teams have rescued 100 people and recovered 2 bodies. It is not clear what caused the accident, but a local police chief told the AFP that he had heard the ferry was overloaded with passengers and the river was rough. Boat accidents are unfortunately not uncommon in Bangladesh's river network. 50 people died back in May when a ferry sank in the same district. Kurdish forces in Iraq will regroup and plan a counteroffensive against the Islamic State, which took 2 northern towns and the country's biggest dam in Mosul over the weekend. This time, Kurdish Peshmerga fighters will be supported by Iraqi air support after Baghdad agreed to dispatch its air force in their fight against the militants formerly known as ISIL, who also claimed large portions of Iraq's north and west in recent weeks. This comes despite months of difficult political relations between Baghdad and the partially autonomous Kurdish Authority. The Kurdish bloc had pulled out of the national government in July, protesting Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki's accusation that Kurds were hiding IS militants. And some early signs of the impact of EU and U.S. sanctions on Russia. As many as 27,000 Russian tourists are said to be stranded abroad after a Russian tour company suspended operations. Labyrinth blamed the negative political and economic situation as well as a deterioration in the ruble exchange rate. And in a separate incident, a Russian billionaire businessman said his personal jet is out of service after Gulfstream refused to service his plane and banned his pilots from using its navigation equipment. Gennady Timchenko was among dozens of Russians sanctioned over the crisis unfolding in Ukraine.
Said that a team of South Korean...
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Korea's foreign exchange reserves hit another record high in July, making it the 13th record-breaking month on the bounce. The nation's central bank said on Tuesday that reserves swelled to $368 billion as of the end of last month. That's up almost $1.5 billion from June. The Bank of Korea attributes the increase to a rise in investment profits. Korea has the 7th largest foreign reserves in the world, following China, Japan, Switzerland, and some others. Korea's main stock index, the benchmark Kospi, shot up to its highest level in 3 years last week and extended those gains a fair bit on Monday. This has raised hopes that the Kospi may be able to break out of its recent pattern of trading in quite a limited range. Also, if we look at the shifting stock prices, we can see the nation's economy seems to be moving away from its traditional manufacturing powerhouses and becoming increasingly reliant on electronics and IT companies. Ji-yeon reports.
The benchmark Kospi broke the 2,080 mark last week for the first time in 3 years. But that's not good news for everybody, as data analyzed by corporate tracker CEO Score show that former heavyweights in the traditionally strong petrochemical, steel, and shipbuilding sectors are faring poorly. They used to be among the main building blocks of the Korean economy, but their market cap has slumped in the past 3 years. Market cap for IT companies, on the other hand, jumped by the biggest margins. Market superstars Samsung Electronics, which take up about 15% of overall market capitalization, rose by over 60% during the period. And the world's second biggest memory chip maker, SK Hynix, and Korea's leading online portal operator, Naver Corporation, both saw their market cap jump by over 100%. But the market value of POSCO, Korea's largest steel maker, shrank by nearly 27% during the period, while that of the world's biggest shipbuilder, Hyundai Heavy Industries, dwindled by over 60%. This has naturally led to a shift in the proportion of market cap by each industry. While the IT, automobile, petrochemicals, and shipbuilding and steel each took up a similar share of the Kospi market cap back in 2011, the market cap is now mainly led by the IT sector, which accounts for more than a quarter of the overall market. Companies in the petrochemical business saw market cap shrink by over half to 6%. Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now staying with some economic news, and stimulus measures recently laid out by Korea's new economic team, led by the new finance minister, are focused on boosting domestic demand and raising household income. But a major player in the finance world, the senior vice president for Moody's Investor Service, who is in charge, in fact, of credit ratings for the major East Asian economies, including Korea, he says that structural reforms are the only viable way to ensure these goals are more than just short-term benefits. Our Hwang Ji-ye reports.
The aggressive fiscal policies of Korea's new economic team will get consumers spending again and help build confidence in business over the short term, says Tom Byrne, a senior analyst at credit rating agency Moody's. He questions, however, whether they will bring about the fundamental changes needed to pull the economy out of its low-growth rut.
Over the long run, I would think that other aspects of the policy package would be more important. In particular, the new economic team's focus on economic innovation, such as reducing the debt level of public institutions. There's also regulatory reform, I think, is important over the long run, particularly, a regime that is predictable, less burdensome.
Regarding government measures to tax corporate cash reserves, Burns said carrots are better than sticks when it comes to policies.
They know that they would get a higher return on a productive investment than they would just by sitting on cash balances.
While the new set of economic stimulus comes amid concerns that the Korean economy might follow in the footsteps of Japan's 20 years of lost growth, Burns says Korea is not the only country suffering from the slow growth trap.
I think just about every economy is facing the prospects that growth will be slower now than it was before the global financial crisis.
About concerns that loosening home loan restrictions could worsen the nation's household debt problem, Byrne believes they aren't warranted for now. Hwang Ji-ye, ARIRANG News.
Now, you have rich people, but then you have super rich people. And a new study shows that there are 35 so-called super rich Koreans in the country with assets worth over 1 trillion won or 968 million US dollars. Among them, less than 1/3 were self-made. The rest actually inherited their wealth. This according to local market research firm Chaebol.com. Samsung Group chairman Lee Gun-hee is the richest person in Korea, with his personal wealth amounting to 13 billion. Of those who amassed their own fortunes, real estate tycoon Ji-yeon of Buyong Group was the wealthiest with assets of $1.8 billion. As for the combined wealth of Korea's 400 richest people, the figure totaled $178 billion as of late July.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in football, where former South Korean national football team head coach Hong Myung-bo left Korea for LA, but not before a brief press conference. The former head coach, who has been at the center of criticism after the winless group stage results during the 2014 Brazil World Cup, stated that the past month was mentally exhausting, but left with some positive comments, saying that no one becomes great unless they go through moments of failures as well. Now, he vowed to return to coaching once again, whether it be the national team or as a head coach of another team. Meanwhile, the KFA continues to struggle in finding his replacement as FC Seoul head coach Choi Young-soo and Pohang Steelers head coach Hwang Sun-ho stated that they're not interested in the position as an interim head coach of the national team. And now, staying with football, history was made on Monday when a Korean sports marketing firm became a first in purchasing a European football club after Sportisan, a Seoul-based firm, purchased AFC Tubize. Now, after all the paperwork were finalized on Monday, Sportisan became the owners of a second-tier Belgian club team. A team which was established back in 1953 was promoted to the first tier in 2008 before being relegated again. But the sports marketing firm has big plans for the team, stating that they will bring in young talents from Korea and hopefully get promoted to the first tier again before earning a ticket to the Europa League. Now, AFC Tubize produced some of the best young talents in Belgium in the past, such as Eden Hazard. And now moving over to the KBO, where one foreign pitcher was in the spotlight after a shocking incident on Sunday. Now, during Sunday's game between the NC Dinos and the SK Wyverns, NC Dinos righty Charlie Sharek got into a huge argument with the home plate umpire over balls and strikes. After a brief back and forth, the American was seen yelling a number of profanity at the ump. And while he was fined $2 million, or a little less than $2,000, he has to volunteer 40 hours to youth baseball as his punishment as well. But Sharek, who's known as one of the nicest players in the league, came out on Monday to apologize, stating that he's sorry and that he's embarrassed for his actions. While he's currently 9-5 with an ERA of 2.84 this season. Well, staying with baseball, four games were tried to be made up on Monday, but once again, 3 of the games were canceled again due to the rainy weather. But the LG Twins and the Nexen Heroes got their game in, so let's take a look at the highlights. Of course, going into the game here, second inning, Nexen strikes first thanks to Kim Min-sung's RBI double to left as Park Byung-ho comes in to score for a 1-0 lead. But here come the LG Twins in the bottom of the inning. Park Kyung-soo's sac fly to center ties the ball game up before Chung Sung-hoon walks here with the bases loaded for a 2-1 lead. Not done yet, though. Hwang Mok-chi swinging a clutch 2-run single up the middle, scores 2 more as the LG Twins take the lead 4-1. But the fourth inning with one man on, Kang Jung-ho, that's number 31 in the season, and Nexen cuts the deficit to 4-3. Despite all that, the LG Twins add a couple more in the 6th inning as they continue to run away, hanging on to win this game 6-4. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, partly cloudy skies will turn to mostly sunny as the day goes on, and there's a chance of passing showers in the southern provinces, but it's forecast to be a spotty one. Well, it's hot again. Some regions down south will see temperatures rising about 5 to 7 degrees higher than yesterday. So the whole nation will see highs hovering in the low 30s. And the high in Seoul and Daegu will rise to 32, while Gwangju and Busan will have a daily high of 30. Now for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 31, and Dokdo should see highs of 29, while Myeongkang reaches at 23. Well, the super typhoon Ha Long is approaching the peninsula, and it's likely to threaten western portion of the Japanese mainland and/or South Korea. It will trigger massive rainfall, and the power of the winds will be strong enough to overturn cars and remove trees from the road. So please keep a close eye on the path of the Typhoon Ha Long. Well, that's all from me at this hour, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you very much, Ji-yeon, for the weather there. And that's all we have for now. We'll be back again at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.